101.9 Chai FM. You're with Niki Seberini, and it's In Your Element. And, I've been telling you the whole week that I was going to be chatting to John Edward, internationally acclaimed psychic medium and author. He's coming back to South Africa, and we were very lucky to just get him to take some time out to have a chat. And by the way, thank you very much also for emailing those questions. I'm definitely going to forward some of those questions to John. John, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, John, I mean, you've been interviewed on lots of stations. You've been on lots of TV programs, and I'm sure you've been asked the same question over and over again. But for our listeners out there, when I mention the word psychic medium, what exactly is that?
Well, a psychic is a person who has the ability to connect with energy. And they could use that connection to talk about what's happening in your life now, what's coming up for you, as well as validate aspects of lessons learned from your past. A medium is a psychic first, but who happens to specialize their ability with connecting with people on the other side. Mm-hmm. So think about it like a doctor. There's a doctor, and then there's a surgeon. But in order to become a surgeon, you have to be a doctor first. So it's like being a specialty of the aspect of being psychic. So that's the best way that I explain it. Like, not every psychic is a medium, but every medium is a psychic.
Okay, I see. Okay, so John, I mean, you talk about doctors. Doctors go and study for many, many years to become doctors. Is there any training that you underwent to become a psychic medium, or is this a gift that you were born with?
Is there formal training like, medical school? Maybe in the future there's going to be where...
You think?
There are people who teach. There are schools. There are definitely places that claim accreditation, that they could certify you, that they could this. But the reality is, it's not a medical association certification. It's somebody coming up with their own certification that sounds all impressive. There are courses in universities around the world that do hold degrees. A lot of people who want to be taken seriously will get degrees in psychology and use their abilities under that umbrella and auspice. But me personally, I had my training by doing it.
So how did that happen for you?
Well, I had a reading when I was about the age of 15. I am so I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second.
Oh, sure.
I apologize because what's happening to me right now normally is what happens to me when I'm actually doing a reading for someone. When somebody chokes, throat cancer, or if somebody had some type of hanging or some type of issue with their throat. Did anybody in your family pass that way?
Via throat cancer or something to do with throat? No, not that I can think of, John. I mean, I'm suffering from a bit of a sore throat at the moment.
Yes, but when I get... Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm trying to think about it as we're speaking, and it's obviously coming very strongly. You're picking it up strongly.
I need to get some drink.
Sure. Okay, what we're going to do is John's just going to go and get something to drink. So we're going to take a quick break. It's 101.9 Chai FM. Niki Seberini chatting to John Edward. More exciting stuff. Going to be asking John your questions. Stay with us. Well, it's 101.9 Chai FM. You're with Niki Seberini, and we're back with John Edward, internationally acclaimed psychic medium and author. And John, just before the break, you were coughing, and you asked me a question about someone who I knew who had passed, and you spoke about throat cancer, and we took it off air, obviously being personal. And just if I can just explain to the listeners that you asked me a whole lot of questions, and you honed in on someone that had passed, and as you continued with questions, so we were able to identify very specific members of my family. So,
if I could just say this, it's a thing for me. A lot of psychics get accused that we fish for information by asking questions, and one of the things that when I'm giving the information, as you just know off the air, is that I kind of state the information to you and then ask you if you understand it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's what a psychic will do. So I like people to know the difference of, like, it's not like I said to you, are you or do you or can you? It's more like you're getting the information and you're asking if this is valid or accurate. I just want to clarify.
And it's just that the information comes so clearly to you, John. I have to ask you, I mean, are you getting pictures? Are there voices in your head? How How are you able to take that and process that information?
Well, if you've ever lied, let's say on the shore of like a water line, like a river, stream, beach, lake with a current, and that current slowly kind of like washes over you, you could feel the water kind of rushing up your body. You feel it.
Right.
As a medium, I feel their energy kind of being downloaded to me. So I sense this extraneous, external force, right? It's very subtle, though, like a breeze. So I feel this like breeze of energy, and then I start paying attention to what I'm thinking. It's extremely subtle. It's nothing like movies or TV, and a lot of people in my field like to make it seem like it's so much more glamorous and amazing than it is.
Right.
I mean, it is amazing, but makes it look like, you know, like they're amazing. And I like people to understand that. I like to demystify what this is. It is symbolic. Energetically, they are communicating no different than somebody who has sign language, but they're using energy. And for me, it's what I see, hear, and feel that I interpret. And I'm hearing thoughts. I'm hearing words. I'm getting pictures that kind of go with them. So it's like you're learning to play a game of what feels like psychic charades.
I see. Do you find it easier now that you've been doing it for so many years to take what you see and sound and feel and put it into words? In other words, have you been honing the skill or this gift, because it is a gift?
You know, thank you for saying that. And I always tell people, I think the true gift really is when a medium makes a connection like you saw, like I just did with you and your family who's passed, and then you get it, and they know that you get it. That creates this circle of acceptance and understanding that, oh my goodness, you know, they're still around, they're still seeing, they still know. And then that gift gets continued to be shared when you tell your family members that are still here that we heard from them. The cool part about that is that you are a part of that gift. The medium just has an ability. You know, it's the medium is an instrument. I'm just a violin. So I have to make sure that my strings are in tune. But when the person on the other side picks it up, it's up to them as to whether or not they're going to make beautiful classical music or if they're going to make, you know, noise like nails on a chalkboard. You know, it's really up to them and how they communicate. The medium can only be as in tune as the instrument.
And John, I mean, you were saying before the break, and we got interrupted, you were 15 years old and you yourself went to a psychic. Because you were saying, how did you discover that you had this gift?
Well, my mom's side of the family, the Italian side,
yes,
was very open to the psychic, the subject matter. And my grandmother, my mother, and her, siblings, they used to have psychics come to the house and do these house parties for years. My father, Irish side of the family, not a big fan of the subject matter. He was a New York City police officer and a U.S. Army guy for life, career guy, and forbid me from being raised in that environment, which was my upbringing, up until I was about 12, when my mom and dad separated, at which point she would just tell me, please do not tell your dad that we're doing this because I don't want to have to deal with him. And that was how this car went. But I had already had his mindset when it came to what the subject matter. It's not real. This is ridiculous. They're paying these, wacky people money to tell stories. This could be dangerous. Your poor grandmother. What if they tell her something, that's wrong? Like that's going to be, you have an evil spell on you. Why did you give me, $5,000 to light candles? Like these are the things that I grew up listening to from him. So when it came time for this woman who did my reading, her name was Lydia Clark, to agree to come to the house to do this house party, her stipulation to my mother was that she would only come under one condition, and her condition was she needed to meet me. So at that time now, I was 15,
right,
and my mother came home and said that they were doing this, and her only stipulation was that she wanted to meet me. Could I make myself available? And I jokingly said, are you kidding? And she goes, no, I'm not kidding. I was like, why did she want to meet me? And she goes, I don't know why she wants to meet you. She goes, but she specifically asked. So anyway, long story short, the day came. I went to her for a reading to debunk her, and she changed my life. She was the woman who put me on this path. She told me right out, very frankly, she said, the only reason why I'm here today, because I don't do house parties. She goes, the only reason I came here today was to meet you, because my guides told me that I needed to put you on your path. You have highly evolved beings of white and gold light that are ready to work with you, and it's now time for you to embark on your journey. And I looked at her like she was like literally snorting cocaine in front of me. Like, what? And she said, you're going to change the way millions of people look at this work. And I remember trying so hard so hard not to erupt in sheer hysteria.
I'm sure.
It was like being in church and the priest farts, and you're supposed to not laugh at that. You're supposed to be like serious, or it's like there's a certain level where you kind of cross the line of I can't do that anymore. I have to laugh, otherwise I'm going to explode.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was. And then she started talking about other things that were very, very specific, and then she hit me with some stuff that made no sense. Well, the stuff that was specific that I kind of rationalized away became more accurate after the reading, and the stuff that I had no idea what she was talking about floored me because there's no way she could have known, and it happened within like 2 weeks. So that was my introduction to this. My family having the predisposition of doing this, so knowing about it, being interjected into this moment, having my belief system completely shifted, and then going on a quest for knowledge, wanting to know what this was. And in that moment was when I realized that it wasn't that I was going to develop my psychic abilities, it was that I was remembering my psychic abilities. I had them my entire life. I just didn't know what to call them.
Like almost as if you had walked into a room and you knew they were there and now you had switched on the light.
Yeah, I look at the movie The Matrix and I say it's like the moment in The Matrix when Keanu Reeves has downloaded into him like information, and then he opens his eyes and he goes, I know jujitsu. It kind of felt like that for me, like, oh my God, I'm psychic.
Were you frightened by that?
My uncle at one time was married to a woman, believe it or not, who used to read cards. She would never call herself a psychic. She goes, I just do cards, and I don't like doing it. I get a headache. But she was extremely accurate with doing it. She was very, very accurate. And one day my mother said, come on, Debbie, do a reading for me. So they were sitting there, and Debbie said, come, I heard that somebody said you could do this. And I went and I sat next to them. I had absolutely no interest. I'm like watching her flip these cards and do her thing, and then the next thing I know, I had this overwhelming like sensation and like tingling outside of me, not inside, but outside of me. And I heard in my head, you could do this. Like, you could do this. And I said it out loud, right in the middle of my mother's reading. I went, I could do this. And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, excuse me? I went, I'm going to go in the other room, and you guys can finish up, and we'll talk later. Because it was like I didn't say it, but I said it.
And were you scared by it at all? Did you ever hesitate and think no?
Afraid of something that you don't believe in, right? So if people have the way fear works is that you give it its power by believing in it. So fear doesn't work when you expose that there's nothing to be afraid of. So if you know that there's nothing to be afraid of, you can't have fear. Because if you don't think something exists, therefore how can you be afraid of it?
Right, of course.
So when I discovered this and I started exploring it, to me I was exploring it like, I lived in a warm climate my entire life, and all of a sudden, snow started to fall. Well, you wouldn't fear snow when it starts to happen. You wouldn't run inside, and hide because there's snow. You would just be kind of in wonder or in awe of the fact that these white flakes of coldness are falling from the sky. And then you're going to start going, why is this happening? What is this? You're going to touch it, you're going to feel it, you're going to watch it accumulate, and you're going to see what you can make with it. That's what it was like for me.
And John, I mean, when people talk about a dark side, is there a dark side to this? I mean, when you are able, you're this medium and you're able to pick up the energy of those that have passed and you're communicating, are there times when, maybe they're not good energies? Maybe there is a dark side, or does the dark side not exist? I don't know.
Well, let's establish the most important thing. There is a dark side. The dark side does not come into play when I'm doing work because I'm protected, and the energy of my guides protect me from allowing that kind of energy. They're like security on the other side for me. Okay. They ain't letting anything bad like that in. I'm very protected. However, the reality is, and not to be freaky for folks, but there's a war going on energetically right now. And if you look at the world, you can see that it's dark versus light. It is a positive versus negative, but it's in thought form structure. Everything goes down to our thoughts creating and manifesting our reality. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now, a lot of stuff that's happening in the world where we can make a difference and we can make a shift by shifting how we perceive our thoughts. Everybody's freaking out about 2012 coming up. It's the end of the world, 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 end of the world.